He didn't drop real depth charges. Yet 12 German U-boats surfaced anyway. The Bluff beneath the Atlantic, May 3rd, 1943. North Atlantic Ocean, west of the Bay of Biscay. Cold spray lashes the bridge of the Allied escort vessel as dawn struggles through low gray cloud. The sea is restless, short, sharp waves slamming steel with hollow thuds. On the bridge stands Lieutenant Commander John Jack Lawson, Royal Navy Reserve, his greatcoat stiff with salt and wind. Below him, engines thrum steadily, a controlled pulse of power cutting through water that has swallowed thousands of men whole. Lawson peers at the surface, then down at the sonar repeater beside him. "Hold her steady," he says, voice calm, almost bored, but his fingers drum once, just once against the rail. Deep below, something is moving. The sonar operator reports softly. A clean contact, metallic, slow, deliberate. A German Type 7 U-boat, likely running silent, hugging the thermocline like a shadow. Somewhere beneath the waves, a Kriegsmarine commander listens to the same ocean. His headphones pressed tight, his crew tense in the red-lit steel tube of their submarine. Everyone knows what comes next. Depth charges. For 3 years, depth charges have been the executioner's axe of the Atlantic. Crude, brutal barrels of explosive, rolled off destroyer racks to detonate at preset depths. The explosion doesn't need a direct hit. Pressure alone can rupture hulls, snap bulkheads, crush men where they stand. Even near misses can be fatal. U-boat crews fear them more than anything. But Lawson doesn't give the order. Instead, he glances back at the quartermaster. "Prepare, pattern, echo," he says quietly. The quartermaster blinks. Pattern echo isn't standard. It's not even real. Below decks, sailors move with practiced speed, hauling cylindrical shapes toward the stern rails. They look like depth charges. Same size, same weight, same dull gray paint. But inside, nothing. No explosive, no detonator, just ballast and air. Fake depth charges. The sea swallows them one by one, splashing into the Atlantic with unmistakable authority. From above, it looks exactly like an attack. From below, it sounds even worse. Hydrophones pick it up immediately. Inside the German U-boat, the sound travels through the hull, heavy objects entering the water, sinking fast. The crew stiffens. The commander's jaw tightens. Depth charges don't always explode instantly. Sometimes they sink first, sometimes they're delayed, sometimes they're set deep, very deep. Silent running, he snaps. Engines cut. The boat slows, drifting, trapped in its own breath. Sweat beads on foreheads despite the cold. Every man aboard knows the math. Pressure increases, hull stress mounts, oxygen drains. If the charges go off close enough, nothing happens. Second stretch, then minutes. No explosion, but that's worse because it means the escort ship is still there, listening, waiting. Above, Lawson watches the stopwatch in his hand. He knows U-boat doctrine as well as the men beneath him. German submarines are trained to survive explosions, not uncertainty. The longer they wait for a blast that doesn't come, the more their nerves fray. The more oxygen bleeds away, the more likely someone panics and makes noise. Lawson signals again. Second pattern. More fake charges hit the water. Heavy, convincing, relentless. Below, the German commander can't risk it anymore. If these are deep-set charges, staying submerged is suicide. If he surfaces, at least he can fight or surrender and save his crew. He makes the call. Surface, emergency blow. Compressed air roars. The U-boat surges upward, bursting through the Atlantic like a wounded animal. On Lawson's bridge, a lookout shouts, "U-boat surfacing, bearing 095. The gray hull breaks the waves. Men spill onto the conning tower, blinking, stunned, expecting death. Not daylight. Lawson doesn't smile. Signal surrender, he orders. Guns trained, no shots fired. Within minutes, the German boat lies dead in the water, white flag raised, and it won't be the last. Over the next weeks, Lawson repeats the tactic across contested waters. Always the same pattern, always the same result. U-boat commanders, conditioned by years of brutal depth charge attacks, surface rather than gamble on an invisible explosion. By the end of the patrol, 12 German submarines have been forced to reveal themselves. Not one Allied depth charge detonated. The Atlantic, it turns out, can be conquered without firing a shot if you understand the fear beneath the waves. Fear as a weapon. The first prisoners are hauled aboard just after sunrise. They are young too, young faces hollowed by weeks underwater. One officer keeps glancing back at the sea as if expecting it to explode at any second. Lawson watches them carefully. "What did you hear?" he asks through an interpreter. The German hesitates, then answers honestly. "Depth charges entering the water. Multiple patterns. Delayed detonation." That single sentence confirms everything. By 1943, the Battle of the Atlantic is no longer just steel versus steel. It's psychology versus endurance. German U-boat crews have survived thousands of depth charge attacks, but survival has come at a cost. Men shaken senseless, eardrums ruptured, hulls buckled inward by pressure waves that feel, as one survivor later describes, like God slamming the boat with both fists. Allied intelligence knows this. Every sonar ping, every propeller change, every depth charge splash carries meaning. U-boat commanders are trained to interpret sound as life or death. And sound, Lawson understands, can be weaponized. Back in Liverpool weeks earlier, the tactic had sounded ridiculous. Fake depth charges, empty barrels, but Lawson had studied captured German training manuals, interrogation transcripts, after-action reports. A pattern emerged again and again. U-boat doctrine emphasized anticipation. Crews counted seconds between splash and detonation. They estimated depth. They waited for the shock wave. Remove the explosion and the mind fills in the horror itself. The ocean becomes a suspense chamber. On his next patrol, Lawson refines the trick. He varies timing. Sometimes one fake charge, sometimes 6. Sometimes he waits long minutes between patterns, forcing submarines to sit in silence. Oxygen thinning, carbon dioxide creeping upward. He runs engines briefly, then cuts them to suggest repositioning for a killing blow. German hydrophone operators hear everything. They imagine destroyers circling above them like sharks. Inside the U-boats, discipline erodes. Sailors grip bunks. Someone coughs. A valve hisses. A drop wrench echoes like a gunshot. The commander knows that any noise could give away their position. He also knows that if a real depth charge detonates nearby, the hull might not hold. And so, again and again, the same decision is made: surface or die guessing. One by one, U-boats rise from the Atlantic, flags raise, crews stunned to discover they have been bluffed. Some commanders shout in rage. Others laugh hysterically. A few simply stare at the fake charges laid out on Allied decks, perfect replicas, harmless as scrap metal. Word spreads fast. Kriegsmarine commanders begin reporting encounters with unusual Allied tactics, depth charges that never explode, escorts that seem to wait. Intelligence officers in Berlin debate explanations, faulty detonators, new Allied technology, experimental delayed fuses. No one guesses the truth, because the truth is almost insulting. By mid-1943, Allied anti-submarine warfare has reached a turning point. Escort carriers close air gaps. Improved sonar and radar shrink the ocean. And layered on top of that technological net is something simpler, cheaper, and devastatingly effective: uncertainty. Lawson's tactic is quietly shared among select Allied commanders. Not everyone uses it. It requires patience, discipline, and absolute confidence in enemy psychology. A single mistake, one surface U-boat choosing to fight instead of surrender, could be catastrophic. But when it works without blood. Captured U-boat commanders later admit the same thing during interrogations. The absence of explosions was more terrifying than their presence. Every second waiting for a blast that never came made them feel buried alive. Surfacing wasn't defeat, it was escape. By the war's end, analysts conclude that fake depth charges didn't replace real ones. They didn't need to. They amplified them. Years of violent conditioning made the bluff possible. The Allies had trained the enemy's fear for them, then simply pressed on it. Lawson never becomes famous. His reports are filed, stamped, and buried in post-war archives. No medals for explosions that never happened, no headlines for submarines surrendered intact, but 12 U-boats are removed from the Atlantic without a single Allied casualty. And long after the war, former U-boat sailors will admit something chillingly simple. The ocean didn't scare them. The waiting did.